The women who blew the whistle on police failures to investigate a grooming gang. Today vindicated. Former sexual health worker Sarah Rowbotham, visibly emotional, angry that she'd not been believed.
I was described as being difficult to work with. Well, what did you expect? Children were being raped every day. The scale of abuse was known to protective services at the time, and they chose not to take appropriate action. Someone needs to explain why.
Operation Span was deemed a success when it led to the prosecution of 9 men in 2012. But report authors today said they identified 96 individuals in the town of Rochdale who potentially pose a risk to children, many still walking the streets. So today came this apology to the victims.
One of the primary responsibilities of the police is to protect the vulnerable from the cruel and the predatory. And in this regard, we failed you. The lessons from our past have been well and truly learned.
But Maggie Oliver, a detective from Operation Span who resigned in disgust at police failings over a decade ago, refuted that claim, telling the chief constable directly that victims were still being failed.
I have current information about what is going on today. And I would say categorically, and I am sorry, Mr. Watson, but the failures that happened then are still happening now.
Andrea, not her real name, was a victim of sexual grooming in Greater Manchester 20 years ago. Abused from the age of 11, she said authorities blamed her.
As I got older, I realised what they were doing. Because I was being groomed, they called me a prostitute.
Who are actually using that word?
Yes, they all labelled me a prostitute.
She says a young relative is being sexually exploited now, and history is repeating itself.
Greater Manchester Police are silencing everyone. They still don't want to hear what's going on. You have to beg and beg and beg for them to help. They'll find any excuse. Show me one thing they're doing differently from when I was a child.
But the chief constable insists much has changed.
But what is absolutely clear is that the mistakes, the systemic failures to protect children of 10 and 20 years ago in Rochdale, as night follows day, could not be repeated in Manchester today. Of that, I am confident.
The report also condemned some police officers who failed to engage with the inquiry.
I also want to say shame on every individual who was asked to give evidence to this inquiry but refused to do so. When you failed to take appropriate action to protect children, or you failed to investigate crimes, shame on you.
Manchester's mayor is calling for people to be compelled to give evidence in the next investigation, which will examine how victims are being treated now. Jason Farrell, Sky News.